I'm Jackie Eshelman, and I am the hub leader, co-leader of EOV Hub, which is the Pacific and Intermountain West hub of the United States. And I am co-leaders with Abby Kingdon-Smith and Andrea Malmberg. Before I became a part of the network, my background is in experiential education. And so after I graduated from college, I worked for an experiential education middle school in Bend, Oregon, where I live. And I was teaching science and math in the field. And so it was essentially ecological monitoring that I was teaching to middle schoolers. And unfortunately, the education system is really under, people don't value teachers as much as they should. And so I decided that I really needed to find something that could pay me, even though that was very meaningful work. It was really difficult to survive on that pay. And so I was looking for other things. Kind of in my life, I've been a skill builder. So I've always been, kind of getting my own education in how to be on the land and that. And so I went and got my permaculture design certificate. And then when I was trying to monetize that and kind of figure out what I was going to do with that in my life, Bend is a wealthier community, and I just couldn't limit myself to the impact in my life being, or impact in the world being, tearing out people's lawns and planting fruit trees for them. And so I was looking for something more, and I actually heard a podcast. At the same time, all these solar fields were going in around Central Oregon, and I kept saying to myself, not that I'm against solar fields, but there just has to be something more that you can do with that landscape. And so right after that, I heard a podcast with Trent Hendricks, and he was talking about solar grazing with sheep. And I just thought, he wasn't talking about savory or holistic management really in this podcast, but it just was this that is totally something we could do with those solar fields. And so I actually called Trent Hendricks, who answered the phone and talked to me for 2 hours. And so right after that, this was in September of 2019, and I found Alan Savory's TED Talk. And it was the missing link. It was the thing that wasn't in the permaculture design that I understood. And it was that, the evolutionary connection between perennial grasses, grazing animals, and pack hunting predators. And I just knew that was it. That was what was missing in my understanding of ecology and the way things work in the world. And so I got on the Savory website. I found that you could be a educator with them. And so I found the Jefferson Center for Holistic Management. They were holding an intensive, which is all of the courses at once in 10 days, down in California. So I went to that intensive in November. So 2 months later, I was at the intensive. I walked in the room and, of course, was like, oh, these are my people. At the end of the course, the instructor pulled out his monitoring gear, and I was, oh my gosh, I teach this to kids. This is amazing. So I bugged him until he finally taught me EOV. So May of 2020, he taught me EOV. June of 2020, we went out together and did some monitoring. He said, oh, you know this stuff. You're ready to go. Here's some work. Go do it. And then we would have kind of weekly calls. And all of a sudden, it was a month later, and the Jefferson Center was owned by a married couple, and they split up, and they asked me to take over EOV. And so I was a little shocked, and it was amazing. And so what an opportunity. So I took over the EOV things for there. And then as that worked really well, so myself and Abby Kingdon-Smith, and then she asked Andrea to go in partnership with her. So then now we're hub leaders, and 3 years later, I'm also running EOV support for the Global Network, and it's been a really amazing time. It happened very quickly, and it just really goes to show that, if you're driven and you take on, there's so far and so fast to go in the network. There's really opportunity for just about anything you want to make out of it. So it's been really amazing. At EOV, like our holistic context, our statement of purpose is to uplift the voice of the ecosystem. And what we really want is for all things to be the full expression of themselves. And so that, I think, really comes through in EOV, because what we're looking for is the potential of the landscape. And everywhere around the world we are in degraded landscapes. It's not, farmers are not trying to do this. And so it is really important to remember that everyone is out there doing their best, and they are, doing the best with what they have. And so sometimes it can be really challenging because these landscapes have been degraded for so long. And especially when we're here in Europe, I think about, the United States being degraded for a long time. But when you come to Europe, we've been affecting these landscapes for a far longer than we have in the US. And so it's really, really interesting to better understand the issues that different people are facing around the world, and how when you talk about the potential of the landscape, it's further and further away in our memory, depending on how long we've been affecting the landscape in that way. And so sometimes when I talk about the potential of the landscape, there's really, you have to use a lot of imagination, because, we just don't see it. It's so rare to be able to see the potential of a landscape. I'm not sure I've ever seen it.